Hi everyone, it's the 21st of May 2024. This is the ILM 5 Level 7 sort of post-course webinar where Mel's and to extent myself, but certainly Mel will go through the written work that's required for the qualification. So, Mel, over to you.
Okay, good morning everyone. So what I'm going to do today is take you over the key points that you need to enable you to complete your assignments successfully. Now, I know Valentin and Simon, I think you're doing the level 7, and Shirin, you're doing level 5, aren't you? So I'll focus on level 7 with the documents, but everything I say will be equally applicable to you, Shirin. It follows a very similar format, and the requirements are the same. Okay, where there are any differences, I'll point them out to you. Okay. So essentially, if we start off with a bird's eye view of the assignments before diving into the detail, what you've got are 3 assignments that you need to complete. Okay. Now they're not very imaginatively titled. There's Unit 700 or 500 for you, Shirin, and that's the knowledge-based paper. Okay, so it's desk-based.
Mel, can I just pause you there for a second? So Val Siraj is just joining us, so
okay.
Might be worth just hanging on just for a second. Hi, Val Siraj.
Hi there.
Yeah. Just, this is being recorded, Val Siraj. It's going to go on a private page on the website that only ILM people can access.
Glad that I could join this.
Good, excellent. Okay, so just starting by saying what I'm going to give you first of all is a bird's eye view of the 3 assignments that you'll need to complete before diving into the detail. Okay, so the first assignment is 700 or 500 for level 5. That's the knowledge-based paper. So it's research-driven, desk-based, looking at books, looking at research papers, looking at the professional bodies' websites. Those will be your main sources for that. Okay, I'll dive into some detail, as I say, in a moment around that. Then we move on to Unit 701 or 501 for level 5. Which is the skills-based assignment. So that's the practical doing of your coaching hours. Okay, so for level 7 certificate, that's 20 hours. For level 5 certificate, that's 18 hours of documented coaching. So rather than writing an assignment, what you're putting together really is a portfolio of evidence to show that you've undertaken the coaching hours, you've contracted, you've done the sessions, and you've reflected on the sessions, and you've had some supervision. Now, more about supervision later, but it's essentially those will form the basis of your portfolio, those records. Okay. The final assignment is Unit 703 or 503 for level 5, and that's your reflective assignment. Okay, so it's you taking a step back and saying, in light of the knowledge that I've acquired through the training and also writing the first assignment and my practical application of it in my coaching hours, how am I now regarding myself as a coach? What are my strengths? What are my areas for future development? What's my plan going forward? So that third assignment is focused on you as coach, okay, in a reflective way. That makes sense so far? Yeah. I should have said at the outset, if you've got any questions as I race through this, feel free to ask them. Oh, that's right, I've just got one already.
Yeah, no, sorry. So the first one is a knowledge-based, and you follow the 700 for if you're following the ILM level 7. Is that
level
correct?
7, yeah, that's right.
And for the knowledge-based paper, it's how many words?
I'll come. Can I come to that when I go into the detail of the assignments? Because I will cover that when we dive in. I'll give you that information and then some. Okay. Everyone okay on the broad shape bit so far? Yep. Okay. So Jeremy has sent you all this morning, you might not have had a chance to open it up yet, a zip file containing some key documents. Now, I sort of extracted those documents some while ago because the ILM handbook is a weighty tome.
Sorry, Mel.
Yeah.
Chris Marshall is just joining us as well.
Okay.
So I forgot about Chris. So I'll just welcome him.
Yeah.
Hi, Chris.
Hi there.
Hiya. Listen, we started a few moments ago. Mel's just given a summary. This will be recorded. You'll get the link to this. So she just explained an overview of this, the overview of the 3 papers, and Mel's now going to go into the detail of the 3 written papers. And I've just sent you a zip file as well with some key documents.
Okay, yeah. So I was just explaining that what's in that zip file are the key documents that I've extracted from the massive document that is the ILM handbook. And yeah, I would suggest make that zip file your go-to. All of the key documents you'll need are there, relatively easy to find. Okay. So I've already said, benefit of Chris, the first assignment 700 is the knowledge base, the theory paper. 701 is the practical, putting together the portfolio of evidence, and 703 is the reflective assignment. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll dive into some more detail around the theory paper. So that'll be 700 for those of you that are taking the level 7 and 500 for the level 5. Now, if you want to open up on another screen, unit 700, that's fine. But what I will do is share my screen so that you can see as I go through. Share that now. So what I've opened up here is the guidance document. Now you've got a similar document for each of the assignments, and this should be really your first port of call. If you only have one document in front of you when you're working on your assignments, I would say make it this one for this first assignment, certainly. So what you've got are a series of learning outcomes. So they're described as LO1, they've got LO2 and LO3 for this assignment. Each learning assignment is broken down into a series of assessment criteria. And for this first assignment on the level 7, Shirin, it's exactly the same for level 5, different questions, but same format. You'll see we've got 4 assessment criteria. Now, you could view those assessment criteria as the questions that you need to answer. Okay, so rather than thinking of this as equivalent to, I don't know if any of you have done a dissertation, for instance, in the past, this is not like writing a dissertation. It's more like writing a series of essays, and each of the assessment criteria gives you an essay title. Okay. So when you produce your final assignment, it needs to be broken down with the assessment criteria as headings. Okay, so you literally, put 1.1, write the question, and then give your answer. Then move on to 1.2, write the question, give your answer. It needs to be separated in that way because each assessment criteria is assessed separately and needs to stand on its own merits. Okay, so you need to meet the assessment criteria for each one individually. There's no sort of borrowing from one question to another. Okay. Now, the reason I say this is a particularly useful document is because of the extra guidance that it gives you.
Well, can I just pause you there? Sorry, Gemma is joining us.
Okay.
So would you mind just stopping sharing just for a moment, and I'll just welcome Gemma, and then we'll pick up.
Hello, sorry, I've had some technical issues this morning, so I've only just managed
Hi,
to join.
Gemma. Okay. So this is hi. Welcome, Gemma. So this is being recorded. So you're going to get a link after. So the first, whether 15 minutes or so, you'll be able to catch up. In summary, there are 3 written papers: theory and knowledge, skills based, and your reflections.
Okay.
And Mel is now taking us through the first paper, which is a theory and knowledge, and explaining how it all fits together. You've received, I think, a zip file from me this morning. You should have received that. If you haven't, I can send it to you again. And Mel is going through some of the documents in that zip file.
Okay, brilliant. I'll have a look. My computer's a bit dodgy at the moment, but yeah, thank you for the recap.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go back to screen share. Okay, so yeah, as I said, you've got the assessment criteria, which are the questions that you need to answer separately, putting the question as a heading. And as I was saying, the reason I think this is the most helpful document for you to look at is because of the extra guidance that it gives. So you've got 2 additional sections, one headed depth, and then scrolling down a little bit, assessment guidance. And they really help you to understand what the question is asking, to help you to interpret the question. So if I give you an example of how that works really helpfully, you'll see as an example, which one should we pick? Let's look at 1.4. You've got a question there, which is determine the relevant factors which can impact on how coaching or mentoring are integrated effectively. You might look at that, suggesting that you will, but you might think, oh, I don't know what factors they're getting at there. I don't know where to start with that question. If you scroll down to the depths section, again, looking at 1.4, you see it gives you lots of ideas, policies, procedures, commitment from senior management, strategies, enough coaches, things like that. And you think, oh, now I get it. Now I understand what the question's about. And then you might think, oh my goodness, there are so many of them. I could write a book on this. How many do I need to write about? If you then scroll down to 1.4 under assessment guidance, you'll see it says determine at least 4 relevant factors. Yeah. So just having this document in front of you almost enables you to create a framework for your answer. So you might pick 4 factors and they think, okay, now I know what I need to go and research. So it gives you a sort of an outline. And importantly, in a coaching sense, you know where the finish line is. You know you can start with the end in mind. You'll know when enough's enough when you've discussed 4 factors. Okay. So, and you'll find those 2 sections help you in that way with all of the questions. Okay. The key really to answering this paper successfully is, and I'm going to tell you what I was always told at school, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who had it drummed into them, was the key is making sure you're actually answering the question that's being asked, not the question you would have liked to have been asked. So yeah, keep it focused on the question. All of the questions have an assessment verb in them. So, you know, it's things like critically compare, critically review, critically evaluate, determine. They all mean slightly different things. And there is a guide, I know in the manual, isn't there, Jeremy, that sets out what those assessment verbs actually mean. So because these are level 5 and level 7 qualifications, there is a requirement for some form of critical review, analysis, explanation. It's not just a regurgitation of, you know, what Sir John Whitmore says or what Julie Starr says. There needs to be research. So basically, as a rule of thumb, wherever you're making a key point, back it up with some evidence. Yeah, and that could be from a textbook, research, some, research paper, something that one of the professional bodies says. Lots of sources available to you. I would say, Google will be your best friend. All I would say there, though, is be a bit discerning with your search results. Go for results that come from academic institutions or professional bodies. The professional bodies themselves, so for coaching professional bodies, have a lot of resources available on their website. So you've got the Association for Coaching, the ICF, and the EMCC being the three main bodies. If you're members, for instance, of CIPD, or even if you're not a member, they've got a lot of resources. They've done a lot of research into coaching in the workplace, so that's often a good source. The other website that I like for coaching research is the Institute for Employment Studies. They've got a lot of really quite good research on coaching within an organisational setting, freely available. And that's another point to make too. There's more than enough freely available research available for you to answer all of these questions. You'll never need to go behind any paywalls to get to the information. If you do bump up against a paywall, then abandon that thread. You'll find the evidence you're looking for somewhere else. Okay. Now, as I mentioned research, I should mention referencing as well. Everything that you use, you need to reference, and the referencing format that ILM stipulates is Harvard referencing. I don't know, is everyone familiar with Harvard referencing? Have you used it in the past?
Is it similar to the APA model?
Very similar, yeah.
Okay, is it fine if we use the APA?
I would say if you could fine tune it, only because ILM do stipulate Harvard.
Okay.
Yeah. There are lots of guides on the internet. The website I always go to, because I think it's an easy reference, is one called Scribr, SCRIBBR. If you just Google Scribr Harvard referencing, they've got lots of nice, easy worked examples that you can follow. The other tip to give you is if you're a Microsoft Word user, Microsoft Word will automatically format for you if you set up the document first. Go through the References tab. You can then, there's the Insert Citation button, set that up for Harvard, and then every time you're wanting to insert a reference, you get a dialog box that pops up. You put the information in and it will automatically format it with the brackets and the commas in the right place, and even better, automatically generate your table of references at the end of the document. So it's worth, and there are help tutorials if you go through the Word help function that show you how to do that. It's worth, I would say, spending a little bit of time setting up in the first instance, because it saves a lot of work at the end of the day, particularly with the table of references. Okay. So yeah, everything needs to be referenced. Obviously, we need to avoid any suggestion of plagiarism. So whenever you are quoting a chunk from a source, make sure it's clear that it is a quotation, and give the source. Okay, is everyone clear on that? Okay with that, yeah. To answer Valstraj's question around word count, for this first assignment, so for the whole of the first assignments, that's 700 or 500, there is a suggested word count. Now, I emphasize the word suggested. It's not mandatory. There's no penalty for exceeding it. The suggested word count is 5,000 to 7,000 words. Now, I would suggest you take that with a bit of a pinch of salt,
So no,
because
that's 5,000 to 7,000 words in total.
in total,
No, not per assessment
yeah,
criteria,
not
just to
per
be clear.
question. Yeah. Now, the vast majority of students do exceed that word count. Because it's been broken down into so many assessment criteria, it's very difficult to keep under that word count. Okay, so don't stress if you're going, a bit over it. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be going massively. We're not expecting you to be writing a book here. I think maybe, more helpfully is to think of each question in itself. So if I tell you that most of the questions generally run to 2, maybe 3 pages. Yeah, if you're getting that sort of per question, then you're on the right tracks. Most students find that that sort of length enables you to answer the questions fully. Okay. Some of them are a little bit longer, only because of the way that the question is structured. So 1.2 there, as an example, you'll see has got 4 sort of subsections to it, 4 extra bullet points. So that might run into 3 or 4 pages, yeah, just because it's a longer question. Okay. Valstraj, the question.
So is this word count including the references, or is it just the body of the text?
Just the body of the text.
Just the body of the text.
Yeah.
I think you answered my other question I had. By each question, you mean 1.1 is one question, 1.2 is another question. Yeah.
Okay, everyone else okay with that so far? Yeah, good. So the key, as I've already said, is getting yourself set up, answering the question. If I tell you in terms of how students often work, is to literally cut and paste into a working document the question and then the relevant sections from the depths and the assessment guidance section underneath the question. So you've got it there in front of you as you're doing your draft answer that keeps you focused on what you need to include. Obviously, when you finally submit it, you can remove the extra notes. So a lot of students find that a helpful way to organize themselves, to keep them focused, not going off on too many tangents. Okay. Valstraj, yes.
I'd forgotten to lower my hand.
Oh, but you're just getting one in anticipation. Okay, so that's the first assignment, and what certainly Jeremy and I would suggest is make a start on that as soon as you can, while the material is relatively fresh in your minds. Do the first couple of assessment criteria in draft form, then send them through to Jeremy in the first instance, and he will either look at it or pass it on to me to have a look at and give you some feedback, just so you get the comfort of knowing that you're on the right track with it, that sorry, I've got an ambulance going past, that you're on the right track, that you're writing it, in the right style, that your referencing is okay, so that you can then carry on with the comfort of knowing that that you're heading off in the right way, to avoid getting all the way to the end and saying, oh, and us then saying, oh, if only you'd have asked us, showed it at the beginning, we could have given you some tips that would have saved a lot of feedback and a lot of reworking. Okay. So
I just, Mel, if I may, I just want to re-emphasize what Mel's just said. it's not a suggestion. We are going to insist on you doing that. Send the first, at least two, maximum 3 assessment criteria, so we can give you the feedback. We do not want you getting all the way to the end, only to find you've got to go back and redo bits, or could add in more detail or take out bits. Okay, we've learned this over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Okay. So, any questions about that first assignment, or anything you want to add, Jeremy?
Any questions first? I think there's a couple of bits I want to add. Any questions, folks? Do you want to stop sharing just for a moment, just so we can all see each other? Any questions at all, folks?
Yeah, just one technical question. Single spaced, 1.5 spaced, double spaced, does it matter?
No, there's no stipulation.
From my point of view, or from I think Melanie's point of view, if you think about this as, you know, that phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One mouthful at a time. So if you take each assessment criteria, answer it, and then move on to the next one. There's, in the whole of paper 700 or 500, there's something like 7, 8 or 9, I can't remember exactly, assessment criteria. So if you take a week or 2 on each of those, in the space of whatever, 3 or 4 months maybe, you've done paper 700 or 500, which is probably the most study intense paper. Is that a fair comment, Mel?
Yeah, definitely.
It's one of these, if you leave it and leave it, it just gets, becomes bigger and bigger in your mind. And before you know it, the end of the year has come. You've got 12 months from this point to get this done. So think about this, so May 2025. So plan it out. It's completely feasible to do the whole qualification in 9 months. Completely, that's everything. You could do it in less than that if you really put your mind to it. Mel, anything to add to that?
No.
Any other questions, folks?
Okay. Okay, so let's move on then to the practical, putting together the portfolio assignments. So that's 701 or 501, and again, it's the same approach for both. In the zip file, you've got a document that in the level 7 is called Unit 701, 702 Diary Doc, and it will be 501, 502 Diary in the level 5. Is it
worth sharing the screen, Mel?
Yeah, I'm just opening.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's my laptop's being a bit slow. There we go. One. Okay, so the diary document is effectively a pack of templates for you to use to record your coaching on. Okay, so in the level 5 document, Shirin, is slightly different in the sense that the diary has also got the reflective login. For the Unit 7 guys, it's separate. Okay, so I'll take them to their reflective log in a moment. So what you'll effectively have for each of your clients, and you need in order to get your hours, there's a stipulation of 2 or 3 clients. Okay, so either 2 or 3. They don't have to be equally spread. So you might have, if you have 3 clients, they don't have to all have the same number of sessions. You can have one who only has a couple of sessions, and then the rest of the sessions shared between another 2. So they don't have to be equally distributed. But for each client, you'll effectively have one of these packs. Okay. So first page is effectively a front page, which you'll complete at the end of the sort of coaching assignment. It's got your name, client reference. Now that's important. It's a reference, not a name, for purposes of confidentiality and anonymity. We don't use the client names. So use the initials or give each client a number, whatever works for you. Okay. And then throughout, you'll refer to the client by that reference number. And you've obviously got start date, total number of hours completed, and then just a signature from the you and the client, just confirming that the hours actually took place. Okay. Then on the next page, we've got the sort of I guess the barest form of coaching contracts that you could have, which you're welcome to use. It's an ILM template. That said, though, if you've already got your own coaching or mentoring contracts, I know Jeremy's got some, I think, in the manual, haven't you? Some suggestions. You know, feel free to use that. What's important is that there is a contract. Okay, so if you haven't got anything else, you can use this one, but you can substitute it with your own form of coaching contract if you wish. Okay. Then we move on to the next pages, which are effectively your sort of summary or planning pages. It's what you would complete after you've had an initial sort of chemistry meeting or an initial call with a prospective client, where you're getting some overview information and you're starting to put together a plan of how you're going to work with this client. Okay, so as you see, first box there, profile of the client and the organizational context. Doesn't need to be massive amount of detail, just a couple of sentences. And really the purpose of that is to demonstrate that this client matches the criteria for them being, you know, senior executives or executives within an organization. Okay, so you might say, you know, client A is the finance director within a, you know, blue chip company or whatever. Just something that sets out the person's role within an organizational setting. Okay.
Mel, can I just add a couple of bits? Can you just scroll up a second? So just not pointing out. Okay, so 701, as Mel said earlier, that's 20 hours. 702 is the diploma. So you ignore the 702, everyone. Similarly with you, Shirin, 501 is actually going to be 18 hours. Ignore 502, that's the diploma. And for you, Shirin, it won't be an executive level client. It will be sort of a middle manager client. There'll be the equivalent, I think, in the level 5 documentation I've sent you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep, Ralph.
So it's a 701, it's a 20 hours, isn't it? And 702 is a diploma, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. So ignore 702 because you're doing the 701.
And can I, whilst I'm put a question, so in terms of the front sheet, if it's a first session, it's 1 hour, hours completed. If it's a second session with the same client, it will become 2 hours or whatever it is, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And I'll come to that in a moment with the subsequent sessions. Okay. But this is really your initial call, you know, almost before the coaching starts, where you're just seeing if the person is suitable for coaching, if they understand what coaching is. It's your sort of initial contracting. Okay. So what are the desired benefits of coaching or mentoring for this client? You know, you'll have asked them, so what do you want to get out of coaching? What's your goal? So it's the sort of their big initial thought. Don't worry that it might not be well formed or smart at that stage. It's, you know, it's the client's words, what they want to get from the coaching. Yeah, what the purpose of the coaching is. Yeah. Then we've just got a bit of housekeeping, where you're going to meet, what makes this venue suitable for the past few years. That's more often than not virtual because it's convenient. Okay, and duration of the sessions, number of sessions. Okay, and fairly self-explanatory. Then we move on to the next page. So this is the first box is about you. So you know, what particular goals have you got in coaching this time? So you might have a goal of, I just want to get practice at using a variety of coaching models. You might have another specific development area that you want to pay particular attention to. So that's a place to record those thoughts. I would say don't get too hung up on whether they're smart or not, because they might not be. As long as you've, you know, given some thought to what you want to get from this relationship yourself. Okay. Next box relates to the coach's stakeholders or other stakeholders. Now that's only relevant if you've been asked to coach someone by, let's say, the HR department or the L&D department or the organisation. It's not a direct one-to-one coaching relationship. So if it's relevant, you can put the goals there. They might say, oh, can you coach client A, because I think they could do with improving their, you know, relationships with their team members or something like that. That would be a goal that you would put there. Okay, but you only need to complete that if it's relevant. All clear so far? And then the final page of this section of the pack is now you sort of thinking, okay, so I've got all that information. What's my plan going forward? So space, you know, how are you going to build the relationship with this client at this level? So any thoughts you might have there, and also what diagnostics or tools you're going to use. Again, it may be that there are no specific diagnostics. You know, that's not suggesting that you always need to, you know, use a psychometric profiling tool, but you might say, I'm going to do some performance profiling, for instance. You might simply say, well, I'm going to, you know, start with the GROW model and see where it goes from there. If you are, let's say, Myers-Briggs qualified or qualified in another tool, you might say, I'm going to use that. There are no rights or wrongs. What's important here is that you're demonstrating that you are doing some thinking about how are you going to work with this client. Okay, what goes there really depends on the client themselves. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. So that's all of the sort of the preparatory documentation, and you would only do that once for each client, you know, at the outset. Okay, so all of those documents will just be once. And then this document that we've now got, yet.
Sorry. So for the 701, how many coaches do you have to take on?
Between either 2 or 3.
And as you highlighted, you don't have to offer the same number of sessions to
No.
all of them. But
No.
is there a minimum?
Well, I would say you'd want at least 2 to show that, because one of the criteria is that you're establishing a coaching relationship.
So what I meant was in terms of the session. So you, if you take 3 coaches, and is there a minimum number of sessions that you should be offering a coachee? You might offer more to one of them so that you have the 20 hours. But is there any minimum number of coaching sessions?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. In order to get any value from the coaching, I would say there needs to be at least 2 coaching sessions, because otherwise you're not satisfying the assessment criteria that you're establishing a coaching relationship. You know, it could be 1 and then we fell out. You know, you want them coming back for at least another session.
And that is excluding the initial chemistry session, is that correct?
I would say yes, unless, I mean, sometimes you need to, there's no hard and fast. If you're having an initial session, which then turns into a coaching session, then you might be able to claim that some of that initial meeting was coaching as well. But if it's just an exploratory chemistry session, then I would say no, it probably shouldn't form part of the coaching hours themselves.
And just to add also that the sessions don't have to be 1 hour in duration. They can be longer than that.
Yeah.
Or shorter, but probably not much less than 1 hour.
Simon's question.
Yeah, I've got a client that I already coach, but the company's just renewed my contract to coach the leadership team, and he's got a new responsibility as a kind of interim head of people. But he would be somebody that I think I could do this with. But would that be cheating in some ways, because you've kind of already established a rapport and
No, that's absolutely fine. I would say, yeah, it'd be good to then have another one who you're starting fresh with, but just to show that, you know, a relationship being created from scratch. You know, in reality, that's what happens quite often, because students taking these qualifications often already have, you know, mature coaching practices.
yeah.
With clients already onboarded, as it were. So yeah, just reflect that in those initial summary documents. You know, we've already built a relationship. How are we going to deepen it? How are we going to make it even stronger?
Okay, thanks.
So yeah, this next page is now your session records. Yeah, so whereas, as I've said, everything up until this point you'll have once for each client. This page you will have one of these for every session that you have. Okay, so if you have 6 sessions with a client, you have 6 of these, one for each session. And it's really a record of what occurred in the session. And as you'll see, it loosely follows the grey model, not even that loosely. You know, what's our goal for the session? Summary of the client situation and current reality, exploration, options generated, and then level of commitment and actions, what they're going to do as a result. Okay, so it's a record really of what happened in the session, with the addition of the 2 feedback boxes. So any feedback you gave to the client and any feedback the client gave to you. Now, I will just say the box that says feedback you gave to the client sometimes throws students. Now, we're not talking about sort of feedback, oh, I think you were a marvellous client, well done. It's not that sort of feedback. It's, I guess, the more natural word meaning of feedback. You know, often as coaches, what we're doing is feeding back, aren't we? You know, what we've noticed or any patterns that we've noticed. So you can include that as the feedback. Yeah, it's not feedback in the sense that it's often regarded in organisations. You know, let me give you some feedback, and you think, oh, it's not going to be good. No, feedback as coaches, what we're often doing is saying, well, I've noticed that, you know, this seems to be a pattern, or, you know, have you noticed that you use this word a lot? So yeah, it's feeding back. Thanks. That okay for everyone?
So when it comes to
I can barely hear you, Shirin. I don't know if it's just me. There's quite a lot of interference. Can you start again?
Is that any better?
That's better.
Yeah. Okay. When it comes to the client giving you feedback, is that about how you conducted that particular session?
Yeah, I would say be careful with that, because you don't want to make it all about you, particularly at the end of a coaching session. But you know, it's perfectly you know, okay at the end of a coaching session. So, okay, so how do you feel that went? So make it general. So it could be, it's not necessarily just about you, it's about the session as a whole. Yeah. What I would suggest you might want to do is at the end of your coaching engagements with your clients, get them to give you some more formal feedback. Now, in the ILM manual, there is a feedback form that you could create your own with a few questions, because that will be useful for your reflective assignment to get some written feedback, or even just ask them to write you an email with some feedback. Okay. So everyone okay with the session records? Yeah.
No, just,
So session
no, just
records. Sorry, session records, Mel. It means that if you're doing 20 hours or 60 hours and you're doing 1 hour per coaching, means you're gonna have 60 of these pages.
Yeah, exactly that.
no, 20, because you won't be doing 60.
No, sorry, 20. Yes, sorry.
20,
so 20
yeah.
of these pages.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to,
Yep.
yeah, just to add that if it's not in the manual, I can't remember. If it's not in the manual, let me know and I'll send you the Association for Coaching's feedback sheet. So whenever somebody applies to the Association for Coaching to become an accredited coach, their clients fill out a sheet. So that's as good a structure as any for you to sort of structure your overall feedback at the end of the coaching hours.
So I'll stop sharing my document. So Shireen, I think you'll find that the reflective log is the next page in the level 5 diary, but for the level 7 guys, in the zip file you've got a document called reflective log, unit 701 702, which I'll open. Again, it's the same document but just stored differently. Just wait till it opens and then I'll share my screen. Okay. Okay, so here's the reflective log. So this is again a series of questions for you to reflect on following each coaching session.
Sorry, Mel, Balslash has raised his hand. Balslash.
Okay. So is the reflective log and reflective journal the same?
No, this is the reflective log. I'll come on to the reflective journal in a moment.
I can't find that in the.
It's at the top of the zip file, about the second document down. Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong side of the zip file. Sorry.
Okay. So this is the reflective log. So like the session records, you'll have one of these for each session. Okay, so and again, they're the sort of reflective questions that you're used to from your training. You know, overall, how did the session go? How was the contracting? How was the building of the relationship? What coaching or mentoring models did you use and why? How well did you listen? How well was your question? Again, any feedback received from client and or supervisor? This next one always makes me smile. Was I ethical and non-judgmental? If I say, 99.9% of the time, all you'll be writing there is yes. Yeah. Sometimes there's a challenge around ethics that's propped up, which you might want to sort of write about there. But inevitably, I'm sure that whatever the challenge was, you will still be operating ethically and non-judgmentally. But yeah, so just a one-word answer is fine. And then you've got your improvement points. So based on your reflection, what do you need to improve for the next session? So this is you showing reflective practice, reflective learning. So I've had an experience, I've reflected on it, and what am I now going to do differently as a result next time? Okay. And then the final question, what do I need to improve for the next session or bring to supervision? That's for you to point for you to note. And then that will act as an aid memoir for when you have your supervision sessions. Okay. Jeremy, would that be a good point for you to talk about supervision?
Yeah. So Shirin, for level 5, there's one supervision session. For those who are doing level 7, there are 4. So the supervision is basically, you speak to myself or Mel, one of us, it'd probably be me, and really we want to find out what's been happening in your sessions with the client. What does the client want? What have you done? What else could you have done? What did you learn? What would you do differently next time? So we're not there in the session with you, but for example, Shirin, roughly halfway through your 18 hours, drop me an email, let me know, we'll set up a supervision session. For those of you doing the level 7, there are 4 sessions, it's roughly every 5 hours. So when you're close to doing, let's say 5 hours in total, drop me an email. And then 10 hours, then 15 hours, and then 20. So it's an opportunity, supervision sessions are an opportunity for you to gain access to Mel and myself, to bounce ideas, to reflect, to learn. We'll prompt you, we'll challenge you, maybe we'll say, yeah, you're doing really well, keep going. And supervision generally is a requirement if you're going to become an accredited coach. Anyway, it's best practice in the field of the work we do. And certainly, Chris, I know you've had some experience around the psychotherapy world. In psychotherapy or counselling, it's absolutely almost a legal requirement, I think, or certainly a professional requirement, similar in the coaching world. Anything to add to that, Mel?
No.
Any questions, folks, on supervision? Yeah, bounce smash.
So if you're offering a coachee 6 sessions or something like that, the coachee need not bring the same issue all the time. Is that it can be different things in each session? Is that correct?
Yeah. So typically what happens is, and this is general, there are exceptions, but generally a client will have an overarching goal, maybe to get promoted, let's say, or they've just stepped into a new role and they want to do really well. That's the overarching goal. And then in each session, you'll work with them on topics to help to take them towards that big picture goal. At the start of each session, you would generally ask them, okay, what do you want from this session? And it's completely feasible that, let's say, halfway through an assignment, the goalpost can move and that the client, let's say, they've just been promoted and they want to do well in one role. It may be that they've got a disagreement with their line manager and they want to leave the organization, for example, or they want some other goal. So my internet's about unstable. Can you hear me, folks? Folks, can you hear me now? So I think my connection went a bit funny. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's normally the same goal, but the goal could change. But in any event, each session is a separate session that you find out what they want and then coach them accordingly. Mel, anything to add?
No, other than you have got again a template form for recording the outcomes of your supervision session in the zip file. So you need a record of those supervision conversations for your portfolio.
Yeah. Chris.
I was just going to ask about the mentoring content. I know all of it's kind of structured as coaching and mentoring. Is there expected to be a certain amount of mentoring? No.
It could be either. It could be all mentoring, all coaching, or something in between. Generally, it tends to be more coaching, but it could be mentoring.
Thank you.
And you will see, Chris, that's a good question, because I didn't mention when we were looking at the first assignment, you will see that the only question that in fact requires you to consider coaching and mentoring is the first question, and that applies to level 5 and level 7, and that's where you're looking at the similarities and differences between the two disciplines. All the remaining questions you'll see talk about coaching or mentoring, so you can focus your answer on one or the other, or if you choose to put a bit of both in, that's up to you, but you don't have to. All right, Shirin, yeah.
Mel, sorry, can I just ask the reflective log? Is that for each session?
Each session, yeah. Okay. So so that's your portfolio. The only other document that you need to create for that assignment is the one that's called example documents to record portfolio of evidence in the zip file. I won't put that up on my screen now because it's just a very simple matrix document that effectively operates as a table of contents that goes at the front of your portfolio, that just enables you to signpost the assessor to which documents they need to look at, because obviously you'll all have called your documents when you submit them electronically something differently, so you're just giving the document names, your coaching contracts, your session records, and so on. Okay.
Raj, I think you have a question.
Yeah, 2 questions. So the document that you were referring to now is the portfolio evidence overview. Is that correct?
The one that's called example documents to record portfolio of evidence.
Sorry, I'm just trying to look at that. Yes, okay, got it. Example documents.
Yeah.
Example documents. Yeah.
It's just, as I say, just think it was a table of contents, and I would say it's the very last thing you do. It's just the final bit of housekeeping. It's like a checklist. Yeah, I've got all the documents that relate to each of these assessment criteria. This is what I've called the document. And that's that. Okay.
Yeah, and just going back to one more question, which Valentine asked previously. So with regard to the reflective log, we will have 20 sheets. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you've got 20 sessions, yeah, it's like a session record and a reflective log for every session that you do. And you need to have as many sessions as is necessary to add up to 20 hours.
So a little tip, folks, if your sessions are longer than 1 hour, there's less of these documents to do. So if you do like an hour and a half or 2 hours, and it's fewer papers.
Okay. So moving on to the final assignment then. Oh, another question.
Can I ask one more question, Mel, before? Yeah, so Jeremy, you mentioned that when you choose your coachees, the coachees should be at a senior level. Is that correct?
The level 7, yes. And the idea is, and Mel, please add to this, it's important to have some kind of strategic or overview of a big department or an organization. Now that could be a small company. It could be the chief exec of a small business. It could be the HR director of a large company. So the job title isn't the key thing. It's more that I have the strategic overview. For Shirin, your situation, it's probably more middle management rather than senior management. Mel, anything to add to that?
No, it's just really to re-emphasize that, yeah, it's because what it's not is you're not just coaching individuals on their individual performance. You need to be looking at it in a wider context, the context of an organization. Yeah, so people with a strategic oversight or input into the organization, because it's them and how they relate to the organization.
And as a tip with that, it's absolutely okay to pick 3 people from the same organization. I think from a learning perspective, if you can pick someone, at least, for example, Valstrax, you work in a large NHS trust. If it's possible for you to find someone certainly outside of your trust and maybe even in the commercial sector, then you'll get a different experience. And you'll be able to compare and contrast and see some of the similarities and differences between people who work at a senior level in different types of organisations. It will make you an even better coach. That's my take on it. And it's not wrong to do it from the same organisation. Mel, anything to add to that before I ask Simon? Simon, you have a question?
Yeah, I mean, could it be somebody from the leadership team of a startup? I'm thinking of one person who, or like a finance director, who would have a strategic view, or because this is a fairly fast-growing and well-funded startup.
Yeah, absolutely.
But not big. I mean, it's 60 people.
It doesn't have to be big. No, it doesn't have to be big.
Okay.
Okay. So if we have a look at 703 then, this is, as I've already described, or 503 for you, Sharon, this is the reflective assignment. So I've just put on my screen the guidance document. And you'll see here what you've effectively got is, again, a series of questions, but this time, rather than encouraging you to do lots of reading and research, what you're doing is you're analysing yourself, and the evidence that you're using to support your analysis is your own coaching practice. So you will be sort of cross-referencing your client session records, for instance. So you might say, for 1.1, for instance, you might decide to do a SWOT analysis. Analysing own strengths and areas for development. So you might do a SWOT analysis. If you're identifying, let's say, my strength is I'm a great listener, you might have a piece of feedback from one of your clients that you recorded in your session record saying that the client told me I was an excellent listener. So in your SWOT analysis, you might put as evidence by session 3 with client C. Yeah, so you can cross-reference your own records just to reinforce what you're saying, just to join the dots, as it were. Okay. So yeah, most students will find this a much quicker assignment to do, because it's basically one piece of reflection, and it's just asking you to view it from slightly different perspectives. So the same sort of encouragement applies. Have a look at the question, have a look what you're being asked in terms of the depths and the assessment guidance, and make sure that you're answering the questions. You'll see the first part is really reflecting on the practice that you've had, inviting you to do things like SWOT analysis, apply reflective learning models. The second section then is, okay, so now you've done all that reflection, what you're going to do with it. So the second section is about your plan going forward and preparing a professional development plan. Now you will find a template for the plan in the reflective journal document that's in the zip file. That contains a number of templates that will help you, including a SWOT analysis template, and not many people would need a template for that. But the most useful one is the personal development plan template. So that's your plan going forward. And then the third section is a sort of a summary section. Okay, so given all of that, what's your profile? So for those of you that are doing 701, 703, you'll see 3.1 is develop a personal profile. Now, people present that in lots of different ways. Some will present it as effectively the equivalent of the About Me page on their website. Some present it as a brochure, as a LinkedIn profile. It's almost like what's the face you're showing to the world? Your coaching CV, as it were. It's a bit of marketing. It's like, these are my strengths. This is what sort of coach I am. These are the sort of people I coach. Hire me, basically. No, Gemma, you've got a question. Gemma, are you there?
Hello. Yes. Am I 703?
Yes, you're doing ILM 7, yeah.
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 703. Okay. Thank you.
And that really is it in a nutshell. Any questions about that third assignment? Or indeed about any of it? Yeah, Basraj.
It's been really helpful. So just again, a very simple, it's probably a very simple and stupid question. So do you actually use this as you use the same template to populate your answers on these same sheets? Is that correct?
I'm not sure quite understand.
No. So for
About the
example, there is the
template.
assessment. Do you say, for example, if you looked at the reflective journal, do you use that same template to so for the reflective log, you use that same template to populate your the details? Is that correct?
Yes, you can use the template documents. That having been said, you haven't got to. If you prefer, I'm of the school of I hate templates that other people have prepared because fonts change, and you can prepare your own as long as it matches that. But I would say the easiest thing is to use the template that's been required, because it hits all the marks that you need to hit for the assessment.
And the number 701 or whatever can remain there. You don't have to edit that out of that template. Yes. No, just wanted to check that. Thank you for that. It's been really helpful. Just gives you an idea of how to go about it.
Good.
And I think also, just to emphasize what Mel was saying, for paper 700 or 500, copy the question, answer the question. Copy 1.2, answer 1.2.
Yeah. And the same applies for 703 as well.
So in total, it's how many words for section 1, 5 to 7,000 words, you said?
Yes.
And then for the rest of them?
There's no overall word count given for 703, because it's mostly sort of tables and plans and things. So it's
Okay.
not so much narrative writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Fired up, good to go. Anything you wanted to add, Jeremy?
Yeah, a few points. So quick summary and then a couple of other bits. So just to re-emphasize what Mel said several times, answer the question. The one that the ILM say, not the one you want. Get started as soon as possible and do one assessment criteria at a time. Just think of it as like a series of chunks of work. Just do one at a time, tick it off, do another one, tick it off. And then, as we said earlier, send us the first 2 or 3 assessment criteria so we can look through and get it, give you some feedback as to how much, are you on track or not. Feel free to start your coaching as soon as possible. You don't have to do like paper 1 and then start the coaching. You can do them in parallel. Julie will send you some guidance on how to format the documents, like, for example, the file names. So it's easy for us to kind of keep on top of it. And linked to that, Julie will probably say that once you've done the whole of paper 700 or 500, send it all to us so we've got it and we can mark it, and that's one big chunk done. You're not writing War and Peace. We don't need 100,000 words. Enough is enough. In terms of the actual marking, so Mel will mark it, or we have another guy called Dennis. So Mel or Dennis will mark it. The other person will, what we call internally verify, in other words, check it for standardization. And I may be involved in that as well. It's pass or not pass. See, it's not like a master's degree where you can get commendations and distinctions. It's, have you passed it or not? And if by some chance you haven't passed a particular assessment criteria, Mel would go, or Dennis will give you some feedback saying what you need to do is just add a little bit more and then resubmit it. So it's not like an exam where it's either pass or fail. If you haven't done enough for a particular assessment criteria, you have a chance just to resubmit it. We'll give you feedback. Okay. Mel, anything to add to that in terms of the nitty-gritty of the inverted commas marking?
No.
Please make it easy for us. We want you to pass with flying colours, nice and easily. Make it easy for us.
So Jeremy and Mel, as I understand, you're the one giving the pass or fail words, right?
Yeah. Well, what happens is I'll come back to you in a second, Sharon. We mark it, assuming it passes. So assuming it passes, we then apply for your certificate from the ILM. We have something called an external verifier. So the ILM once a year reviews the marking that Mel, I, and Dennis do. And they've been very happy with what we've done so far, and we intend to keep it that way. So that's it. But we do have to we have to adhere to the ILM standards, basically.
Okay, so you're the one who's saying pass or fail, and then that's why we can resubmit, because we resubmit to both of you.
Yes.
And basically once a year you're kind of audited by this ILM
Yes.
thing, and they pitch they take 1 or 2 or 3 person to make sure that everything's
Yeah,
correct.
that's right. They'll look.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll send them copies of your email, of your essays, assignments. Yeah.
Clear, very clear. Thank you, Jeremy, for clarifying.
Okay, Valentine. Shooting.
Can I just ask? I know that you said we should send you the criteria for how we look at it, and then you'll give some feedback in terms of the draft version.
Yeah.
Can we do the same for 502 or 503 just to make sure that we are logging the right kind of things?
Yeah, it's 501 shooting for you, I think. 501 and 503, but yes.
Yeah, and effectively you'll be doing that because those are your sort of session records. So that's what you'll be discussing in the supervision sessions. So yeah, we'll be seeing those in any event when we're discussing the content of those.
But by all means, send us a couple of examples, a couple of sheets, just to make sure. That's right.
So in terms of the order of the submission, it should be first the theory paper should be submitted, then the coaching sessions, and then the reflection. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would recommend. It's hard to do the reflections until you've completed the 20 hours or 18 hours of coaching. And given that the first paper, the 700 or 500, is the one that takes most research, so to speak, we would recommend you do it that way. But you can do the coaching in parallel and keep your logs, etc. So you're building up your portfolio for 701 or 501 as you're doing 700 or 500.
Thank you.
Any other questions, folks? Mel, anything to add?
No, don't think so. Well, other than I guess experience shows, as Jeremy said, make a start. You know, get yourself past the staring at a blank sheet of paper stage by, you know, cutting and pasting, as I said, the guidance into a document. But those that you know, complete this successfully within the time frame are those that start with good study habits. You know, set aside a bit of time every week, maybe, where you can do a bit. Little and often is better than doing it in short bursts, particularly if you're going to leave those short bursts to the last minute. So I would say start as you need to go on, make a start. Once you've got some momentum, keep it going.
Anything else, folks? All right. And obviously, if you do have questions as you go through, drop me an email, drop us. I mean, we'll give you Mel's email address as well, so drop us both an email, and of course answer it. Okay, so thank you, Mel. Enjoy.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you
Very
very
helpful.
much. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, folks,
Bye.
take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Stop the recording, Mel.